For readers of Qidian and QQ Browser, don't believe the comments in the book review section. There are too many comments these days. You only know whether a book is good or not after reading it yourself. The author's character guarantees that this book is really good. Qingchun, the school flower, wants to learn from him, the charming imperial sister wants to be slept by him, top grade Bai Fumei wants to marry him, even the stunning Buddhist nun was chased by him. He is a young Taoist who, relying on the technique of defying the heavens, travels to the capital of flowers. He subdued demons and demons all the way, read all the stunning beauties in the world, and was envied by everyone, always walking at the peak of his life. Little Taoist Bookfriend Group. 575739385 keywords of the novel. Urban Ultimate Little Taoist No Pop-Ups, Urban Ultimate Little Taoist Complete Collection Download, Urban Ultimate Little Taoist Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Super Run Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Super Run Girl. In 2017, the land of China. In the vast mountains, there is a dilapidated Taoist temple where an old Taoist is talking to a young Taoist. My disciple, you also know that my cultivation has already reached the sky, and it is time for me to suffer from the thunderous calamity of heaven and earth. In order to successfully overcome this thunderous calamity, I must go to a secluded immortal land outside the world for several years to prepare for everything. The old Taoist was serious, while the young Taoist was dazed, and could not help roast. Master, you are forced to pretend too much, so you will be struck by thunder, right? You are just a charlatan who knows everything about deception. Where does he come from? The old Taoist's mouth twitched and he argued, why did I deceive and deceive you? Why haven't I achieved the heavenly cultivation? The little Taoist showed a disdainful expression and said, Master, you can just fool around in front of outsiders. Don't fool around in front of disciples, right? Use your fortune-telling skills to touch the body of the yellow flower girl and steal cucumbers from the vegetable field. Even the middle-aged lady in her 40s and 50s can't even take a shower. Do you think these disciples can't see it? How much cultivation can you, such an old god, have? The old Taoist was so angry that his whole body twitched. He intended to continue arguing, but his heart said goodbye was imminent, so he stopped arguing with his disciple. With a calm heart, he said, My disciple, according to my teacher, this time I have been in seclusion for at least 3 years and at most 5 years. During these few years, you have nothing to do while staying at this dilapidated Taoist temple. Let's go down the mountain and take a look. You have been learning Taoism with me since I was young. I haven't been out of this deep mountain and I am completely disconnected from modern society. It's time to let you go down the mountain and experience it in the world. I have a nephew who is the president of a university in the imperial capital. He is the chubby guy you met when you were a child and I asked you to call him third brother back then. Do you still remember him? Take this letter and go join him. After the old Taoist finished speaking, he took out a letter from his pocket and handed it to the young Taoist. The little Taoist's eyes suddenly turned red, tears welled up in his eyes, and he was about to drip, feeling very sad. The old Taoist was deeply comforted. This disciple, whom he regarded as his own, still had great feelings for him. He couldn't bear to part with himself and was about to cry. The little Taoist choked up and said, Master, I don't have the fare to go to the imperial capital. The old Taoist suddenly spewed out a mouthful of old blood. You unfilial villain, I'll kill you with one palm. Taking out a few red tickets from his pocket, he said seriously, My disciple, this is 500 yuan, which is already the entire wealth of my teacher. I originally intended to keep it for the beautiful little nun who came to meet the 8 gates, but now I have given it all to you as the fare to the imperial capital. The little Taoist looked at the 5 red bills that were red and swaying, and was so excited that he knelt down and bowed to his master. He kowtowed 3 times and said excitedly, Master, you are really kind to me. Usually, you only give me 50 cents each time. This time, I am so moved. The corner of the old Taoist's mouth twitched again. It seems that he had caused quite a few sins himself. Sadly, he said, "My disciple, go pack your things now. Remember, don't bring those Taoists who eat with you. You're going to the city to study, not to do magic." The little Taoist heard this and went into the house to pack up his things. Due to his master not allowing him to bring any Taoist artifacts, he really didn't bring any. However, he secretly took away several calligraphy and paintings that his master had cherished. According to his master, each of these calligraphy and paintings is priceless. Bringing it to a big city will definitely sell for a good price. His master is usually extremely stingy with him, and it is not excessive to offer him a few calligraphy and paintings as compensation. The little Taoist finished packing his things, and the old Taoist had already planned to bid farewell to the little Taoist for the last time. The old Taoist explained before him, "My disciple, remember to abide by the law and be a good citizen in the big city. Don't misuse your Taoist teachings, you know. If possible, soak up a few more girls. The girls in the big city are all very beautiful." As a teacher, looking back on several bad relationships back then, I still drool. The little Taoist was once again moved to tears and whimpered, "Master, is this really good?" The old Taoist said calmly, "My disciple, relax. It's okay. Picking girls doesn't affect our cultivation. Our sect is not the same as those bald donkeys." Upon hearing these words, the little Taoist was deeply moved. Master is truly even closer than the one who is close. The old Taoist continued with a final warning, "My disciple, I want you to remember that unless you come to a critical moment of life and death, you cannot unlock your dragon flame divine arm. Do you understand?" The little Taoist saw his master's appearance and knew it was not a joke. He glanced at his right arm tightly wrapped in cloth and answered seriously, "I understand." The old Taoist nodded with satisfaction and said sorrowfully, "All right, I'll explain everything that I need to explain to you. You go." When it was time to bid farewell, the little Taoist became serious and solemnly kowtowed several times to his master, saying goodbye with tears in his eyes. The young Taoist's name is Zhongling, who is 18 years old. He was born on September 9, 1999 at 9.9.9.9. In addition, his birthplace is a place of extreme yang, forming a rare 9 nines that his master called the 9 yang body. The dragon flame divine arm that he has been wrapped and sealed with a cloth strip is related to the rare 9 yang body that has been encountered for thousands of years. As for why the 9 yang body is not related to the lunar calendar, but to the Gregorian calendar, it must be asked of his master. Zhongling carried a military green, old-fashioned backpack and walked for 7 days and 7 nights just as he walked out of the mountains. There's no way, the mountain he lives in is too remote, inside the mountain. After leaving the mountains, I took a bus to the county town and then took a train there. After 2 or 3 days of traveling, I finally arrived at the bustling imperial capital. Along the way, his biggest regret was that money didn't go to waste. He thought his master had given him 500 yuan as a huge sum of money, but he didn't expect that in the outside world, consumption was much higher than in the mountains. The 500 yuan disappeared instantly, and by the time he arrived in the imperial capital, he only had a few yuan left. He followed the address given by his master and asked people along the way. It took him a whole day, but he still couldn't find where his third brother was. He couldn't help but sigh, this imperial capital is too big. What kind of 3 rings, 4 rings, and 5 rings? His head was dizzy. Seeing that it was completely dark and he had no money, he had to camp out in the park. On the first night of coming to the imperial capital, I slept outdoors like a homeless man, feeling very sad. But what Zhongling couldn't bear the most was not camping on the streets, but walking alone in this seemingly bustling but actually cold-hearted big city, completely unfamiliar and helpless, unfamiliar with the place and without relatives. After all, he is even more from the countryside than any other person. He is a mountain resident in the mountains and has never been to this bustling metropolis before. The changes in his upbringing environment are too great for him to adapt to. The next morning, Zhongling got up and started his activities. He planned to earn some money first before continuing to search for his third brother. Otherwise, if he hadn't found his third brother today, he would not only have to continue camping on the streets, but also have to go hungry. Zhongling bought a few steamed buns with the last few yuan, and after finishing his meal, he set up a street stall on a relatively crowded street. He doesn't have much other ability either. His profession is fortune-telling for others, driving away evil and avoiding evil, but in fact, it's just big deception. Fortune-telling emphasizes talking to people and ghosts, and being able to deceive a little is a bit important. His stall was very rudimentary, and he didn't bring all the books, cards, signatures, and other things that Mr. Botsy had to eat because his master didn't allow him to bring them back then. I spread a cloth on the ground and wrote 4 big characters. Ancestral film. Oh, no, it's professional fortune-telling. In addition, he also displayed several calligraphy and paintings stolen from his master, thinking that if these paintings could be sold, he would immediately become rich. Due to the rudimentary nature of the stall, there were occasional onlookers, but they left quickly and didn't do any business after running for a long time. Zhongling was so haggard. He felt that guarding like this was not enough, so he couldn't help but wave his hand and shout loudly. Ancestral Taoist techniques, such as touching bones, looking at faces, testing characters, changing destiny, observing feng shui, driving away evil spirits, subduing demons, are all proficient in this small path. Come on, everyone can give it a try. It's free to calculate surnames and ages, see future prospects, look at the 8 characters, calculate marriage, and measure destiny. Don't be free. Hey, friends who come and go, don't believe it. Do you have any real skills? You'll only know after trying. Don't look at the 8 characters, it's good to look at these classical paintings. Each one is authentic, and each one is priceless. Just as Zhongling was enjoying himself waving and shouting, an extremely luxurious red supercar came to a decisive stop in front of him with a sizzling brake. This is a bright red convertible sports car, with a very eye-catching color and a very stylish design. Inside the sports car, there is a top-notch beautiful girl who dresses extremely fashionably. The beautiful girl was wearing a pair of shiny big sunglasses, and under the reflection of the sun, she was completely blinded. After getting off the car, Zhongling was stunned by his tall and slender figure, waterfall-like straight black hair, and confident and sunny spirit. Even more astonishing, she walked directly towards Zhongling, approached and elegantly removed her sunglasses in front of her. Her posture and movements were elegant and graceful, simply stunningly beautiful. This rural bumpkin, where have you ever seen such a bright and blind beauty? Swearing silently in his heart, this is the most beautiful beauty he has ever seen in his life. After the beautiful girl approached Zhongling, her figure was straight, her head and chest were high, showing great confidence. More importantly, she reached a height of 1.70 meters, with an extremely tall and upright figure. She also wore high heels with an 8 cm sole, and her total height reached 1.78 meters. Facing Zhongling, who was only 1.73 meters tall, he exerted great pressure on him. Girls themselves are taller than boys, and now girls are even taller. No wonder Zhongling feels a lot of pressure. The beautiful girl came straight to the point and asked, "I heard you shout earlier. You said you were a Taoist. How is your level?" Her voice was clear and pleasant, making her feel relaxed. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. First Business. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 First Business. A top-notch beauty is a top-notch beauty, even her voice sounds more comfortable than others. Zhongling secretly praised in his heart. This is the first business of the day, and the one who came was still a beautiful woman. Zhongling naturally didn't dare to neglect it. He confidently shook off his flowing long hair and said, "My level is not boastful, little Taoist. I change my destiny against the sky, turn misfortune into good fortune, drive away evil spirits, subdue demons and subdue demons. I am proficient in all aspects of this small path, and there is nothing I can do to justify myself. The beautiful woman looked up and down at Zhongling, and saw that the young man was dressed in grey clothes, which couldn't be more rustic. There were also many mud marks on it, like an old farmer who had just come out of the field. What's even more peculiar is that he still has a long, loose hair that he thinks may be handsome, but to the beautiful woman, he looks more like a wandering wanderer. What kind of ghost is this? Is it a shamat nobleman from the countryside? Surprisingly, just such a rural non-mainstream person looks really nice. I saw that his facial features were very delicate, his eyebrows and eyes were clear, and he had a beautiful scholarly and elegant temperament. The delicate eyebrows, nose, eyes, lips, and slender cheek curves, combined together, are exquisitely beautiful, truly a very beautiful young man. Also, because he is so delicate, he looks like a teenager around 16 years old. The first impression of a girl is that this kid must be younger than her age. The young man's appearance, in the eyes of a beautiful girl, must be admitted to being very beautiful and pleasing to the eye. If he is willing to cut off his long hair, cut a hairstyle that suits him, and then change into a delicate outfit, his image will definitely change by 1800 degrees, and he can blind many beautiful girls' eyes. Although he is a top-notch handsome guy, he happened to give himself such a low-level look. I already feel that this young man is unreliable in my heart. Looking at his attire, it turns out that there are no common Taoist eating utensils such as peach and wood swords, talismans, bells, gossip, copper coins, etc. This makes me feel even more unreliable. Shaking his head, he said, "Forget it, I'll go find the master recommended by my dad." "You can't handle this." The extremely beautiful girl put on her sunglasses again, then turned around gracefully and walked away decisively. "Can't I handle this?" Upon hearing these words, Zhongling suddenly became furious. "Aren't you, a little girl, showing off your contempt for the Taoist? Female benefactor, please slow down." Zhongling quickly shouted, "Female benefactor, I see that your shadow is slightly tilted towards the southwest. I can tell that you are entangled by a fierce ghost." Zhongling's words immediately shook the beautiful girl and she stood in place. Taking off his sunglasses again, he turned around and glanced at Zhongling in surprise, asking, "You're just looking at me once, even if it's my experience." "Not bad, kid. You have 2 moves." Zhongling's mouth slightly raised, revealing a proud smile. "Without showing your hands, you don't know the strength of this Taoist." He said that this beautiful woman encountered a fierce ghost to scare her, but her shadow showed that she was indeed haunted by the ghost, but the ghost was relatively gentle and would only pester her to make everything difficult for her, and would never harm her life. The changes in this kind of shadow are very subtle, and ordinary people naturally cannot see any tricks, but professional Zhongling can see them at a glance. The beautiful girl saw that Zhongling's strength was not bad, so she immediately grabbed his hand and walked towards her car. "Let's go, come with me to my house and handle this for me. In the past few days, I've been annoyed by this ghost to death, and she's scared me crazy." Zhongling stood straight in place, not moving a step, and resolutely refused to let the beautiful woman get in the car. The beautiful woman looked at him as fixed as a piece of wood, unable to pull it any way, feeling a bit strange. She couldn't help but wonder, "Why are you still unwilling to leave?" Zhongling had an inscrutable expression on his face, waved his hand, and then flicked the dust off his clothes before speaking slowly and confidently. "Beautiful woman, you can also use the small path to go to the door or service, but the small path must first explain that going to the door or service requires a special fee for going to the door or service. Moreover, beautiful woman, you also need to consider carefully. The price of the small path is a bit expensive. Can you first say if you can afford this price before dragging me onto the car?" The beautiful girl was afraid that he would take the opportunity to extort when she heard him say this, so she also wanted to inquire about the price first before doing anything, so as not to have two people arguing and not to be clear. Seriously asking, "Then tell me, how much do you want?" His heart was filled with sarcasm. How dare you ask for exorbitant prices while dressed in this dirt? Seeing that the beautiful woman was interested in asking for a quote, Zhongling suddenly felt a secret joy in his heart. Nima's big order came. This little girl looks like a wealthy woman, she can definitely make a big deal out of her. Very eloquent and plain to say. If the service fee for the small path is less than 50, I won't do it. As for helping you drive ghosts, miss, because you drive a fierce ghost and the price is not in the same level as ordinary ghosts, you can't expect the small path to make a move without 100 yuan. So, the total amount is 150 yuan. You can think of this price first. If you are willing to pay, then call me. My heart is particularly empty, because according to their rules in the mountains, going to the door or server is 30 times, expelling ordinary little ghosts is 30 times, and expelling fierce ghosts is 80 times. But in reality, the one who was going to expel this beautiful woman today was an ordinary ghost, but he lied to others that he was expelling a fierce ghost, so the total labor cost added up to 60 yuan. He suddenly mentioned 150 yuan, which is twice and a half the price. How could he not be feeling guilty? After hearing the quote of 150, the beautiful girl almost burst into a verbal abuse. I thought you planned to get 300 to 400,000. Oh my goodness, it seems like you're dragging around 80,000 yuan. Your value is only 150 yuan, isn't it? With just one kick, he kicked Zhongling onto the car and said loudly, with your worth, it's not a problem for me to invite you to come here 100 times. 150 is too little for me to handle, so I'll give you 250. Really? Miss, you are so kind. I am so touched by the small path. Zhongling heard that he could earn 205 yuan at once, and was so excited that tears flowed down his face. The happiness in his heart was even happier than the beautiful woman in front of him. As soon as I was happy, I forgot about my situation. I rushed over and hugged the beautiful woman's beautiful jade arm, which was like a lotus root. My face was full of happiness, and I said, "Thank you, benefactor. You are truly the cutest person. You are both beautiful and kind. Then let's say it's okay. After the incident is completed, you must not act rashly." As he spoke, he even rubbed his face directly against the beautiful arm of the beautiful woman, saying that her skin was smooth, and rubbing her face against her arm was very comfortable, with a faint fragrance. I'm almost reluctant to let go. At this moment, the beautiful girl was already driving, and when she saw the Taoist eating her own tofu, she couldn't help but say, "Hey! Hey! Who told you to move around? Don't touch my body. Hurry up and let go of my hand. They're driving. You can't do without money." Zhongling let go of the beautiful woman's hand and was extremely excited in his heart. Wow, I'm developed now. I can earn 200 and 500 yuan from my first order today. How fast the money is coming. Usually, he and his master go out to subdue demons and eliminate demons. Every time they are exhausted and move their hands to catch ghosts, it is always him. His master only smokes and watches from the side. Unless he can't handle it himself, he reluctantly takes action. Every time, most of the hard work was taken care of by Zhongling, but in the end, it was the master who collected the money. And every time he earns tens or hundreds of dollars, the master only gives him a hard work allowance of 50 cents. Just like this, Zhongling followed him for 18 years without hesitation. Now if you work alone, you can earn 2,500 in one go. These are two vastly different types of income, okay? How could he not be particularly excited? No wonder he's so impolite. The beautiful woman looked at the person next to her with extreme disdain and muttered angrily, "What kind of person is this? Zhongling sat in the car, the wind blowing in from the convertible sports car, making his long hair flutter with the wind, feeling so beautiful in his heart. Then it seems that this little girl's car is quite high-end, much more luxurious than the small cars I saw before. Thinking of going to a distant relative's house with my master to do something before, their family has already moved out of the mountains and now lives in a small town by the mountain. Their family has a small car like this. At that time, the relative proudly told Zhongling that his small car cost over 60,000 yuan. At that time, Zhongling's heart twitched wildly upon hearing this, and then he began to calculate in his heart. Be good, every time I go on a business trip with my master, I can earn 50 cents. So, how long do I have to save money to buy such a car? I can't afford to save it for a lifetime. Suddenly, I felt a deep respect in my heart. This distant relative is really a wealthy person. And then looking at this beautiful woman's car, it's obviously much more upscale than his relative's car. If his relative's car costs 60,000 yuan, then this one probably costs at least 80.90000 yuan, right? He said, "Beautiful woman, your car is nice, it looks so high-end." The beautiful woman's impression of Zhongling was not very good anymore, and she didn't want to talk to him much. She casually dealt with him and said, "It's okay." Zhongling continued, "I'm afraid it would cost 80.90000 yuan to buy such a car, right?" Puff. The beautiful girl suddenly sprayed old blood on the steering wheel. "Big brother, please see clearly, this is a Lamborghini supercar. It cost her father over 8 million. If Zhongling knew he was sitting in a car worth over 8 million yuan, he would probably be scared to death. Fortunately, the beautiful woman did not show off her wealth and did not tell him the actual price of this car very seriously. And the beautiful woman didn't mind him dressing too tacky and dirtying her car. Zhongling only realized that this beautiful girl was a wealthy woman, but he had no idea how wealthy she was. Compared to a poor person like him, it's like heaven and earth. No wonder Zhongling, who said he has always lived in the deep mountains and has never seen the world. The car was moving steadily forward when suddenly a yellow supercar rushed up from behind, parallel to the beautiful girl's Lamborghini. The young man in the yellow supercar shouted to the beautiful girl, "I saw Sue's car from a long distance, and I came over to greet her." "Oh, Miss Jima, which song did you sing today?" Driving a luxury supercar, taking a rural non-mainstream ride. Su Jima glanced at the boy in the yellow supercar and then at the bumpkin beside her. She saw that the bumpkin was shamelessly, smiling at the wealthy second generation across from her, which should be considered a polite greeting. Just how lewd his smile was, it made her so angry that she couldn't bear it and threw her face away. "At least you are also a handsome guy, can you pay attention to your appearance?" Su Jima frowned heavily. Why did she hire such a strange person today? "I'm too lazy to explain, because there's nothing to explain to people like me on the other side." He said angrily, "Who am I taking for a ride?" "It's none of your business, Zhao Kun. Get away from me, don't follow me." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. You have a problem with her. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 4. Humanity is vague, immortal way is vast. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 4. Humanity is vague, immortal way is vast. The female ghost finally remembered herself when she saw this woman and sternly asked, "That day I was hit by a truck. Why didn't you take me to the hospital?" The beautiful girl suddenly weakened her aura and defended herself, saying, "There were so many cars on the road at that time, and I was the only one who stopped. I risked my life to drag you from the middle of the road to the roadside, wasn't it? Although I didn't get you into my car in the end, I called you 120. The female ghost angrily said, "But at that time, I begged you. I said you wanted to take me to the hospital, otherwise it wouldn't be too late. But you turned around and left. The beautiful girl was so anxious that she almost cried and choked up, saying, "But with so many cars passing by that night, even though they saw you being hit by a car, they didn't even get off the car. It's just that you found me, the person who specifically got off the car to help you. Is this fair?" Zhongling explained, "Because no one else got off the car, it has nothing to do with the whole incident. She has no way of finding it. Only you were remembered by her before she died. The beautiful girl regrets meddling in her own business. I only heard that the old lady fell down and couldn't be helped. It turns out that someone was seriously injured by a car and can't be taken care of. Otherwise, even if she died, she would have found you. Why didn't you find the driver who caused the accident? But you came to find me. Didn't you get the wrong person?" the beautiful girl asked. Zhongling hurriedly said, "The driver who caused the accident must be the first revenge target of this female ghost. She has come to harass you now, indicating that the driver who caused the accident is already quite unlucky." The female ghost nodded and said, "Yes, when he was driving on a steep road, I turned his steering wheel and he fell into a 100-meter abyss and died." The beautiful girl was scared after hearing this, it was too terrifying. She could imagine a driver driving leisurely, and then suddenly the steering wheel automatically turned, causing the car to rush down the cliff. "What do you plan to do with me? Do you also want to kill me?" asked the question. The female ghost shook her head and said, "I want to kill you. You're already dead. I'm pestering you, but I don't want you to be okay. At the same time, I want you to give me an answer. You had a car back then, why didn't you just take me to the hospital?" The beautiful girl's tears streamed down her face and she cried, "Have you forgotten what you looked like when you were hit? Your intestines have all come out. You have bled a lot. Even if I get you in the car, there should be no way to save you." The female ghost asked, "It's because she saw that I was hopeless, so she didn't even try to save me, did she?" The beautiful girl had already turned into a tearful person, and she didn't expect to encounter such a thing. She explained. "Not entirely, mainly at that time, the car was not mine, it was my best friend's. She was a bit of a cleanliness freak and disliked others getting her things dirty. So, I was afraid she would blame me for taking her car, which would cause her car to bleed all at once. She definitely couldn't bear it." The female ghost sternly said, "Just because she was afraid of getting your car dirty. So she gave up saving me. You rich people are so selfish." The beautiful girl choked up and said, "I'm sorry. If it's my own car, I will definitely take you to the hospital as soon as possible." Zhongling quickly interjected, "Now that the situation is clear, there is a head of injustice and a debt to the master. You have already avenged yourself, and even bothering this beautiful woman will be of no use. Moreover, if you let me surpass you today, after suffering from 30 years of hell's frying, you may still be able to enter the animal kingdom, and the younger generation can become animals. But if you continue to be stubborn, you will never be able to surpass yourself." The female ghost was startled when she heard this, but she still felt a bit reluctant and said, "But I don't want her to be okay." Zhongling shook his head and sighed, "Hey, why can't you figure it out? After all, she's the only one who got off the car to help you. Although she didn't directly drive you to the hospital, what about her compared to other indifferent passers-by? Isn't her quality much better? No one owes you anything, no one has an obligation to help you, and she can just turn a blind eye and drive away. There won't be anything like today, but she still got off the car and helped you. Helping you more or less is helping you. But not only are you ungrateful, but you also come to trouble her. How could there be such a reason in the world?" Upon hearing Zhongling's words, the female ghost immediately understood the truth behind it. Indeed, Su Zhima was the only one who got off the car and helped her, but instead she came to trouble her. This is indescribable. So he repented and said, "Master, I know I was wrong. Please help me, transcend me. I don't want to never be reborn." Zhongling nodded in relief, and being able to resolve this matter without bloodshed was the outcome that Zhongling most wanted to see. This female ghost still makes sense. If we really want to take action, this female ghost is not our opponent, but after all, she is forcibly subduing others and may even destroy their divine form. Zhongling still doesn't want to do so in his heart. Zhongling began reciting incantations to transcend the souls of the female ghost. Humanity is elusive, the immortal path is vast, and the ghost path is joyful. It serves as the gateway to life. The immortal path rises high, the ghost path ends high, and the immortal path always brings good luck, while the ghost path often brings bad luck, the high and clear spiritual beauty, the sorrowful song of the outer space. Not long after, the female ghost slowly disappeared in front of the two and entered the path of the underworld. Su Zhima, who had been silent beside her, stared blankly at Zhongling with a look of admiration on her face. It wasn't until the female ghost completely disappeared that she joyfully grabbed Zhongling's arm and jumped, saying, "Wow, master, I didn't expect you to be a bit skilled in Taoism. You're so amazing. Do you accept female disciples?" What she thought to herself was that she could learn a few moves at Zhongling and show off in front of her best friend in the future. Her best friend would surely be shocked to see herself suddenly so powerful. She gets excited just thinking about it. Zhongling looked at her with a contemptuous expression and said, "Female benefactor, please don't think that one play is another, okay?" Su Zhima's face was immediately embarrassed, and her initial excitement was gone. She couldn't help but say, "Cut. What's so great? If you don't learn, then don't learn. Do you really think I want to be a nun?" Zhongling emphasized, "Female benefactor, nuns are the routine of monks. Our Taoist women are called Taoist nuns. Whatever your name is. I'll give you 300, you don't need to look." Upon seeing 3 red tickets, Zhongling immediately cast a red light in his eyes and snatched the money. After counting them, he recognized the authenticity one by one. Not bad, they were all real tickets. With a smile on her face, she kept nodding and bowing to thank her. "Thank you. Thank you. You are truly a bodhisattva, beautiful and generous. I hope you will come and take care of our business next time. Or if you have any friends who need fortune-telling, feng shui, or fortune-telling, you can introduce them to me. I won't treat you unfairly either. For every customer you introduce to me, I am willing to give you a referral fee of 20 yuan. Do you think it's feasible, madam?" Su Zhima felt dizzy in both eyes and rolled her eyes. It was 20 yuan. A lot of money. And when he saw the money, he completely transformed himself. He was really a money slave who was open to money. Su Zhima teased him and said, "Why don't you show me your palm? What's the fate of this young lady?" After speaking, she extended her flawless, crystal clear and beautiful palm to Zhongling. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Checking Palmistry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Checking Palmistry. Facing such a beautiful palm, Zhongling did not directly take it over, but said with great force, "I have told you before, miss, that I am very expensive, and I will calculate my palm." Before Zhongling could finish speaking, Su Zhima kicked him to the ground and yelled, "Miss, I know you're worth a lot. Is 50 yuan enough to make a living?" Zhongling lay on the ground and said seriously, "Miss, don't worry, there is no deceit between the old and the young here. The palm count is less than 50 yuan, only 30 yuan. Calculate." Su Zhima Ba said, "Calculate accurately, calculate well, I'll give you 100. Zhongling's eyes lit up again and he exclaimed excitedly, "Miss, didn't you use my brush? I really gave you a palm count and gave you 100. Su Zhima felt amused, "Isn't it only 100 yuan? Miss, I drove a car and stayed in a room. Do you need to double-check for 100 yuan? Nodding, he said, "Yes. You can do the math. After you finish the math, give it 100. I'll wipe it. This lady is so rich." Zhongling was almost thrilled in his heart. Nima had great luck today. It seems that he can earn 400 yuan from a single business deal. I wipe it, this can be more exhausting than usual, 7 or 8 orders. I wipe, is it so easy to earn money in this big city? I wipe, as long as we encounter a few more big clients like this in the future, we will not have to develop ourselves. Zhongling was overjoyed and excited in his heart, and quickly said, all right, I'll leave it to the young lady to do a good calculation. As Zhongling spoke, he picked up Su Jima's white and clean palm. At the moment of purchase, I immediately felt that the little girl's palms were really smooth and tender, and the feel was amazing. More importantly, each of her fingers is crystal clear, smooth and delicate, finely crafted like condensed jade, beautiful and intoxicating. Zhongling also didn't want to deceive her into marrying a good husband in the future and giving birth to 8 obedient sons who were white and chubby. But rather reveal a little bit of the actual situation that one sees and say. From your palmistry, I can see that you had a disaster before the age of 16, but you survived. You must have been seriously ill at the time, right? You almost died, right? Su Jima's eyes widened greatly, and now there was no doubt about Zhongling. She was surprised and said, young Taoist, you are really amazing. You even calculated that I had a serious illness when I was 15 years old. Amazing. So what will be my fate in the future? Have you calculated it yet? Previously, fortune-telling had already occurred, and usually major changes would leave marks on one's palms, which is not difficult for a true Taoist to discern. But who knows the fate in the future? Unless one consumes virtue and forcibly examines it, the so-called heavenly secrets cannot be revealed. If one forcibly reveals the heavenly secrets, both virtue and yang longevity will be compromised. Zhongling had no intention of achieving this level for 100 yuan. Fortunately, there is no pressure to fabricate about this matter in the future, and it is impossible to expose him on the spot. He casually said, your future destiny will be relatively smooth, and you will have a smooth sailing and live to old age. However, there are still a few small setbacks when you hit the target, and there may be some small disasters. But as long as you grit your teeth, move forward with all your might, and don't bow down to difficulties, you will definitely turn bad luck into good. So, miss, you are a precious life of great wealth and prosperity. This is a universal fortune-telling routine, because most people live an ordinary and indifferent life until old age. However, in a mundane life, who wouldn't encounter some small difficulties or life changes? So this statement applies to the vast majority of people. Just say it's a noble fate when you meet a noble person, a mediocre fate when you meet a mediocre person, and a laborious fate when you meet an ordinary person. Su Jima didn't know this was a cliché, thinking it was a fate he had calculated for herself. When she heard that her life was relatively smooth, she immediately smiled happily and asked, so, has there been any small disaster you mentioned recently, Mississippi? What about our future marriage? Will we be lucky? Zhongling suddenly sensed something keenly. A fortune-teller in the martial arts world, observing words and expressions, and steering according to the wind, that was the basic skill. This young lady has linked her recent marriage together, obviously, she has a marital crisis recently. Zhongling quickly guessed that everything was going smoothly, so he continued to fabricate, miss, your marriage has had some minor difficulties, which may have come from your parents. Su Jima's eyes were shining brightly as she looked at Zhongling, extremely surprised. She completely believed in Zhongling, this godly figure. Surprised, he said, yes, this is not going smoothly because of my parents. My parents want to marry me to a wealthy young master, but that young master is too playboy. He usually idles around and doesn't do anything. He also likes to play around with girls. I look down on him very much and I don't want to marry him at all. Master, can you help me think of a way in this regard? Zhongling shook his head and said, this is your lifelong event, Mississippi. I cannot force you to change it. If I force you to change it, it will ruin my life. But I can remind you that sometimes your fate is in your own hands. Most of what kind of life you will live in the future will depend on your own efforts. It is not impossible to change your destiny against the heavens. Therefore, Mrs. Marriage should be changed by yourself. If you make all your efforts but still cannot change this fate, it is called fate. Upon hearing this, Su Jima immediately showed a resolute expression on her face and thought to herself, what a destined person. I don't believe it, I was destined to marry that unremarkable man. After Su Jima made a neutral decision, her mood suddenly brightened. She took out 100 yuan from her purse and handed it to Zhongling, saying, Little Taoist, here. For Zhongling, everything was empty, and the red ticket in front of him was real. He immediately smiled and took the money in his hand. Raising the corners of my mouth, that's a sly smile. In fact, the life he calculated for Su Jima had no substantial content, but 100 yuan was actually a real deception. In Zhongling's heart, it was an excitement. Wow, 400 huge sums of money have been successfully fooled into his hands. Of course, Zhongling is not purely deceiving, he is truly capable of deceiving in taking half of it. It's much better than those pure and deceitful fortune tellers. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Recognizing Sister. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Recognizing Sister. After calculating her palmistry, Su Jima trusted Zhongling's abilities even more. She looked at him seriously and said with a serious expression. Little Taoist, don't call me Miss, it looks too awkward. And Miss, my name is Su Jima. Now I want to make friends with you, little Taoist. What's your name, right? Of course, Su Jima was interested in Zhongling's genuine mystical skills, which was why she wanted to make friends with him. Her father usually asks those masters for help, which often costs hundreds of thousands of yuan. This young Taoist is not to mention his strong abilities, and he is incredibly cheap. Where can I invite such a good and cheap Xuanxue master? Zhongling, seeing such a wealthy beauty, actually wants to make friends with him. That must not be taken lightly. This friend will become his own big customer in the future. I'm not sure how much else I can get from her in the future. Is it okay to have at least 1 or 2,000? Thinking of being a potential customer with a huge future of 1 or 2,000 yuan, Zhongling dared not neglect it and said calmly, Little Dao Zhongling, it is a great honor to make friends with Miss Su. Little Dao has just arrived in the imperial capital, so I hope Miss Su can take good care of me. Su Jima casually said, seeing that you have some skills, it's not a problem to take care of you. You came to live in the imperial capital at a young age, and I really admire you. I think with your skills, you can quickly do well in the imperial capital. Upon hearing Su Jima's words, Zhongling laughed happily. Who wouldn't like to hear others praise him? Thank you very much, Miss Su, for your kind words, said humbly Su Jima asked curiously, by the way, how old are you? Zhongling did not conceal it and revealed his age of 18. Su Jima was a bit surprised. She always thought this kid was only 16 and looked too delicate, right? I am also exactly 18 years old, but if they stand together, they will definitely be considered siblings. Because I look much more mature than the boy in front of me. I want to have a chest and a buttocks, already possessing the charm of a mature woman. However, the 18-year-old boy in front of me, who is also too delicate, does not appear mature. If this boy were to be dressed in an ancient scholar costume, coupled with his hairstyle, he would definitely be a graceful and beautiful young man with an extremely refined scholar temperament. It's just a pity that his beauty was completely destroyed by this rural attire. The two of them compared the months again, and Su Jima was indeed several months older than Zhongling. At this moment, Su Jima looked more at Zhongling and didn't know if it was a whim or what she thought. She said seriously, Zhongling, don't call Miss Su's sister anymore. Why don't you call her sister? Zhongling's eyes widened, why are you my sister? Niobe coaxed and said, although you are older than me, why do I call you sister? I don't have the habit of recognizing my sister everywhere. Yoha. Miss, I want to recognize you as my younger brother. Are you quite backbone? Ba Dao said, Miss, I have a charming face and a sexy figure. I can handle it and bring it home. I treat you unfairly as your sister, right? Besides, with a cheap sister like me, don't you want it? Are you stupid? Su Zhima considers herself to be the authentic Bai Fumei. Once a poor boy like Zhongling recognizes Bai Fumei like her, there are many benefits, but he still doesn't recognize her. Zhongling stubbornly said, anyway, I don't like to casually recognize my older sister because I'm a man, and recognizing my younger sister is pretty much the same. I absolutely can't call you sister, and even cheap older sister doesn't recognize me. Unless you recognize me as a brother, it's pretty much the same. Su Zhima couldn't help but stare. Are you younger than me and still want me to recognize you as my brother? Think beautifully. Pointing at Zhongling's nose, he threatened, Are you called sister? Zhongling retorted sharply, No shouting. Su Zhima's eyes widened again and she threatened even more sharply, Are you really not shouting? Zhongling's chest straightened and he said, A man must have principles. If you don't shout, don't shout. Su Zhima thought to herself, Can't I still subdue you, this kid today? To deal with people like you, it seems that you must use a big move. Taking out 200 yuan directly from his wallet, he arrogantly patted the table and said, If you call me sister in the future, these 200 yuan will be yours. Is this matter serious? Zhongling asked seriously, Miss Su, are you sure you're not joking with me? Su Zhima found it funny. With my skills, fishing for 100 or 200 yuan at a time is really not my style. But for some reason, she felt that Zhongling was particularly simple from the moment she first met him, as evidenced by his speech and the details of the price he offered for his work. So for such a simple rural youth, she doesn't want him to be tainted by money, and doesn't want him to feel that making money is too easy and lose his true nature. It is precisely for this special reason that every time Su Zhima gives him a reward, at most 100 or 200 more than the agreed upon basis. It is precisely for this reason that Su Zhima has a good impression of Zhongling, such a thug. According to the prices of those famous masters of metaphysics, this time they have truly driven away a female ghost for themselves, and it is impossible to do it without hundreds of thousands. However, Zhongling only accepted her for a few hundred yuan, and it turned out that she had made a big profit by bullying him and not understanding the market situation. Of course it's true. Su Zhima said very funny. Zhongling was overjoyed and swept the money into his hand, then exclaimed without any hesitation, Sister. You are really my good sister. Who doesn't like a wealthy sister like you? Su Zhima was taken aback by the rapid change in her stance. But it's only 200 yuan, so it's not bad to buy a cheap younger brother. With a smile on her lips, she said, Sister thought you were more manly and principled. She bought your principles for 200 yuan. Zhongling had already put 200 yuan in his pocket and chuckled, Sister, don't say it's 200 yuan. Even if you give me 10 yuan, I'll call you sister. Calling you sister won't cause any loss. I can't even calculate this account, can I? Do you really think I'm stupid? Su Zhima rolled her eyes again. This kid is a typical person who only recognizes money but not people. I can't help but suspect that if someone offered more money, wouldn't it be that my sister wouldn't recognize me? I can't help but feel a little disappointed. Subconsciously asked, Brother Ling, are you just so fond of money? Zhongling said seriously, money is a good thing, how can you not like it? And most importantly, money is so easy to earn in your big city, whether you can make it in real time or not, you can earn tens or hundreds. Today, with you, sister, I earned even more, directly earning 600. I have never made so much money in my life. Zhongling looked at Su Zhima and said seriously, do you know? Every time I go out with my master in our big mountains to do things, catch ghosts, and so on, most of the work is done by me. I only give me 50 cents each time. I also pour water to wash his feet, massage and rub his back. All kinds of service are thoughtful, but there is not a penny in return. I have rarely touched a ticket worth more than 1 yuan in my life. Can you say I don't like money? After hearing this, Su Jima's nose was sour and tears were about to fall in her eyes. She was really moved. For a young lady like her, it's not a problem to spend tens or even millions of dollars. Usually, a bag costs tens of thousands, but the young man in front of her rarely touches a ticket worth more than 1 yuan. I was extremely moved, but at the same time, my heart said that the conditions in the mountains are really difficult for them. I can also understand why he values money so much. He stammered and said, "Oh. This way. No wonder." He cursed in his heart that Zhongling's master was really a vampire. How could he only give 50 cents each time? At least give me 1 yuan. Intentionally teasing him, he said, "I didn't expect your labor fee to be so cheap, little brother Ling. So, how about giving your sister a massage for 5 yuan? Zhongling didn't even think about it and agreed, "Okay, I'm 10 times stronger than my master anyway. Now that I'm idle and doing nothing, I won't make this money for nothing." Su Jima chuckled and said, "Hee, I'm just teasing you. They won't give you a press, and I'll take advantage of them later." Zhongling was a bit disappointed and said, "Oh." He didn't make another 5 yuan. Su Jima changed the topic and said, "Since we recognize siblings, if you want to call me Momo Jia, you can call me Momo Jia in the future. I will call you Ling Xiao in the future. How about that? It sounds more dignified." Zhongling happily said, "Okay." Although he wasn't a young master, being called by Ling Xiaoling's young master made him feel comfortable. Having experienced the young master's addiction is also good. Su Jima continued to emphasize, "Also, sister, I'll make a deal first. Ling Xiao, you're only allowed to recognize me as a godly sister in the future. If you're still flirting with other girls, be careful not to let me break your legs." Zhongling puzzled and said, "Sister Momo, are you being a bit lenient about this? My master specifically instructed me to pick up more girls in the big city. Besides, if I don't pick up any girls, I won't be able to see my master again. I'll be laughed at by his elders." Su Jima suddenly had 3 black lines on her forehead. What strange masters are these? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Yuanhe Noble Universities. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Yuanhe Noble Universities. Alright, that's it for today. Come on, sister will take you back. Where are you staying? Su Jima said as she walked out of her villa gate and towards the garage. Zhongling now has no place to live. Thinking that Su Jima should know the location of his third brother, he asked, "Sister Momo, do you know Yuanhe Noble College?" Yuanhe Noble College was founded by his third brother, who is the president of this school. If Su Jima could take herself there, it would save him a lot of trouble. I searched for it all day yesterday, but couldn't find it. Everywhere in this big city is similar, and after wandering around, I feel dizzy. Su Jima nodded in surprise and said, "I know, do you live in that place?" Zhongling explained, "My third brother is the principal of that school. In fact, when I came to the imperial capital this time, I came to seek refuge with my third brother." Su Jima was even more surprised and made sure to ask, "What are you saying? The president of Yuanhe Noble University is your third brother?" But as far as I know, the president of Yuanhe Noble University is named Ge Zhong San Yan, and he is in his 50s. You are 18 years old and have an older brother in his 50s. Su Jima really doesn't believe it. And what is Ge Zhong San Yan's identity? The president of Yuanhe Noble College, with a wealth of billions and a prominent position, is clearly not from the same social class as this bumpkin. Zhongling was pleasantly surprised and said, yes, my third brother's name is Ge Zhong San Yan." Momo Jia, do you know my third brother? How could Su Jima not know each other? Because she is studying in that school. It's just that I haven't gone to school during the summer vacation. Seeing Zhongling's surprised appearance was not just a pretense, but also because Zhongling's surname was Zhong, and Zhong San Yan's surname was also Zhong. Zhong is not a common surname, so it shouldn't be a coincidence. He believed what Zhongling had said and praised, "Not bad, Ling Xiao. I didn't expect you to have a benefactor to help you in the imperial capital. Now it will be even easier for you to stand firm in this imperial capital. Your third brother should be able to help you a lot." Upon hearing these words, Zhongling was immediately overjoyed and proud. It seems that San Ge is doing well in the big city. Even Su Jima says he is a noble person, so he must be very impressive. If I have a third brother to cover me up in the future, I can really rest assured. The two of them got into a luxury Mercedes-Benz. Miss Su Jima, there were more than one car in the garage, heading towards the Yuanhe Noble School. "Ling Xiao, what is your phone number? It will be convenient to contact you in the future," Su Jima asked while driving. Zhongling shook his head and said, "I don't have a phone." "Ah. You don't even have a phone. How can I contact you in the future?" Su Jima was surprised. Who else in the big city can't have a phone these days? Zhongling said, "Then go find me at the Yuanhe Noble College. I should stay there from now on. How about I give you a mobile phone? It will be easier to contact you in the future," Su Jima suggested. "No need, no need." Zhongling strongly declined. If it belonged to him, he would not hesitate to fight for it, but it was not his, and he did not like to take advantage of others. Su Jima insisted, "But you don't have a phone, how can I contact you any time in the future? Besides, I go to Yuanhe Noble College every day to find you, how can I just make a phone call?" Zhongling suggested, "Why don't you tell me your phone number, Momo? I'll take it down and call Momo when I buy a phone." After some consideration, Su Jima said, "That's okay, the number is 1x times x times 666,666. Zhongling smiled and said, "Is the number so slippery? It's easy to remember." Su Jima smiled calmly, and her evaluation of Zhongling had improved significantly. At least he is not the kind of person who likes to take advantage of others, as he does not receive rewards for his lack of merit. Although he is greedy for money, he takes it wisely and earns it through labor. What belongs to him, what doesn't belong to him, is still not greedy. Under the leadership of Su Jima, the two arrived at the entrance of Yuanhe Noble College. Zhongling was secretly happy and met a wealthy woman with a luxury car, which was convenient and saved him a lot of trouble. He searched for this school yesterday, but couldn't find it for a whole day. Zhongling got off the car and waved his hand to Su Jima, saying, "Sister Mo, I'm here. You can go back, please." "Thank you." Su Jima smiled slightly and said, "No trouble, sister will leave first." Zhongling also smiled slightly and felt very happy. He nodded and said, Su Jima finally reminded, "Ling Xiao, remember to call your sister." After saying this, she gestured for a phone call in her ear. Zhongling nodded and said, "Okay, rest assured, Sister Momo. I'll buy a phone soon." Su Jima glanced at Zhongling a few more times, not knowing why. She felt a bit reluctant to part with her new and honest younger brother, afraid that he would have a bad life after leaving. This has nothing to do with the love between men and women, it's just a feeling where the older sister wants to take care of the younger brother. Because he was too innocent, he won Su Jima's favor, making Su Jima immediately feel like she wanted to help this younger brother. In the end, she drove away and Zhongling looked at the back of her car until it disappeared. As a commoner with a flat head, he was able to meet such a wealthy sister, who was also so beautiful, which could be considered a rare encounter for him. And for the first time in life, I have something I really want to buy, which is a phone. This item can be contacted at any time, which is very convenient. It is a must-have item in this big city, so not buying it is not enough. Glancing at the gate of Yuanhe Noble College, it was grand and luxurious, truly worthy of being a noble school. Seeing the school gate blocked by an iron fence, Zhongling found the nearby security room and said he wanted to enter. The security guard looked at Zhongling with scornful eyes, and saw that Zhongling's clothes were worn out, and there was a dusty smell of soil, just like he had just come out of the field. Carrying an old army green backpack on his back, even if the soil is almost at its peak, it's okay. He's still disheveled. Like a wandering ronin. Can you put this kind of bun inside? Unless I want to be fired. The little security guard angrily shouted at Zhongling, "Go there, where did you come from, little rascal? Get away from me. Our Yuanhe aristocratic university is a place specifically for recruiting wealthy second-generation students, where is it your turn as a beggar to enter?" Zhongling saw that the little security guard was a bit narrow-minded and looked down on people. He crossed his hands and straightened his waist, saying coaxingly, "I'm here to find your principal. Your principal is my third brother." The security guard once again glanced at Zhongling's attire, which was comparable to that of a homeless man, and immediately sneered impatiently, "Go away. Go find your third brother somewhere else. The principal of our Yuanhe noble school is a billionaire, and he's already over 50. Can he be your third brother, a teenager?" End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Ge Zhong San Yan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Ge Zhong San Yan. Zhongling saw that the security guard didn't believe him and insisted that he was the principal's younger brother. As soon as he came and went, the two of them argued at the school gate. The security guard got angry from behind and started to directly bombard him, but this kid still had a strong willpower. When he started fighting against him, he couldn't even get rid of him. The security guard is really angry now. "Hello, hello," call out to the walkie-talkie and call 7 or 8 security guards. Upon seeing their battle, Zhongling tightly hugged a large pillar and refused to leave. Not to mention, Zhongling looks very delicate, but his strength is not small. 7 or 8 strong men are unable to get him off the pillar. The two sides held a comical stalemate for about 20 minutes, and the security guards were exhausted one by one. They thought to themselves that they had hit a mental illness today. Later on, the security guards had no choice but to deal with this useless scoundrel who couldn't even leave. Someone suggested, "Why don't you help him make a phone call? Ask the principal and you'll know if he's lying. It's also good to make him give up." Zhongling readily agreed, "Okay. You guys fight." After the phone is dialed. "Hello, is that Principal Zhong?" The security guard who called was the first to intercept Zhongling, with a very low eyebrow and pleasant voice. "Oh, Principal Zhong's secretary. Can you transfer the phone to the principal? The security guard at the main entrance of my school. It's like this, there's a little rascal who has to say he's the principal's younger brother. He's causing trouble at the school gate and refuses to leave, saying he wants to see the principal. You can convey it to the principal and ask him to verify it so that he can confirm whether he's really there or not. I really have no way to deal with him here. What's his name?" The security guard then turned to Zhongling and asked loudly, "What's your name?" Zhongling replied unhappily. "Secretary Huang, he said his name is Zhongling." "Oh, the principal doesn't have such a younger brother. Okay, I know how to do it." Upon hearing this, Zhongling quickly added, "Your principal may not remember my name anymore. But he must remember his uncle. Just give my master's name, Zhang Yuanqing." Upon hearing Zhongling's addition, the security guard couldn't bear to convey, he said his master's name is Zhong Yuanqing. At this moment, after a while, the security guard trembled all over and said, Oh, okay, I got it." After the security guard hung up the phone, his gaze turned off when he looked at Zhongling. "The principal said you need to go in, I'll show you the way," he said in a very friendly tone. The other security guards were all taken aback and thought to themselves, "This is a wicked door, such a dead country bumpkin, and how old is he?" Surprisingly, he is the principal's younger brother. The principal is so old, how could there be such a young brother who is only a few decades away? Upon arriving at Principal Zhong's office, the first thing I saw was the legendary secretary Huang. Zhongling's eyes suddenly jumped. Wow, his chest was so big, so round, and so bright that a large part of the white flower was exposed. This is too eye-catching, right? Speaking of which, Secretary Huang is really beautiful. Not only does he have a plump and charming appearance, but his figure is also forward and backward, making him extremely sexy and tempting. Being able to hire such a beautiful woman as a secretary, our third brother is indeed a wealthy person. Secretary Huang looked at it. How could he be such a rustic country bumpkin? A long and disheveled head, wearing tattered clothes, and carrying a dirty backpack that cannot be further dirty. And at such a young age. Is it really Principal Zhong's younger brother? And not a nephew or something like that? Principal Zhong is over 50 now. This is really a bit unbelievable. But he still dared not neglect and said softly, Principal Zhong is inside. Go in. Oh, Zhongling nodded and pushed open the door in front of him. After entering, the first impression is that this office is so big, spacious, and bright. The decoration is very luxurious, but it is slightly inferior to Sujima's home. Not far away, on a luxurious sofa, sat a chubby man smoking a cigarette. Isn't it Ge Zhong San Yan who used to call her third brother when she was a child? Zhongling suddenly became excited and shouted enthusiastically, Third brother, Zhongling, you saw me when I was young. I remember you called me Xiaolingzi back then. Do you still remember? Ge Zhong San Yan sat leisurely on the sofa, naturally knowing that his uncle Zhong Yuanqing regarded this little disciple as his own. But his heart is very unhappy, third brother. Third brother. 3. Your sister. I'm several decades older than you, can you also call me the third brother? He said angrily, what's up with coming to the capital to find me this time? With his expertise, of course, he knew that Zhongling had come all the way to the capital to find him. Apart from being troublesome, it was nothing good. How could there be any good expression? The simple Zhongling directly explained his intention and said, Master wants me to join third brother and study at his school. This is a letter from Master to you. Upon hearing that she had come to seek refuge with her, Ge Zhong San Yan's face immediately turned black. In his heart, he thought to himself, you impolite little rascal still wants to study at my school. You don't want to inquire about my school. Can anyone come in to study? I'll just send you to any garbage school, and it's impossible for you to enter my school. Although I was very unhappy in my heart, I didn't show much on the surface. Instead, I had a dark face and patiently read my uncle's recommendation letter. After reading it, Ge Zhong San Yan was about to explode. That old man Zhong Yuanqing actually threatened me in a letter, saying that as long as I didn't enroll his disciple in this school, he would curse me and make me lose everything and become a poor ghost. Speaking of why I was able to soar to fame, it seems like my uncle changed his life and suddenly everything went smoothly. With success in his career, he rose to the level of a current aristocratic school principal and a family worth billions of dollars. If it weren't for my uncle's moral conduct, I'm afraid I would still be out of a poor mountain valley and working hard. Ge Zhong San Yan still respects and fears his uncle Zhong Yuanqing, and in his heart, he still believes that his uncle has some moral skills. Okay, I'll take this kid, but I must extort a sum of money from him for tuition. How can there be a free lunch in this world? Ge Zhong San Yan thought calmly and said. Xiaolingzi, you are my uncle's beloved disciple. Admitting you to study at my noble school is not a problem, but my tuition fees are very expensive. Do you have the ability to afford it? How much does a year's tuition fee cost? Asked Zhongling, unaware of the vastness of the world. Ge Zhong San Yan exhaled a mouthful of green smoke and said calmly, the tuition fee for a year is 280,000 yuan. This is the actual price, and everyone else pays this fee, without any intention of scaring Zhongling. Ah! Zhongling jumped up and threw himself directly onto Ge Zhong San Yan's thigh, holding on to one of his fat legs and crying loudly. "Brother, you also know that I am a child from the mountains, how could I possibly have 280,000 yuan? Can you reduce the tuition fee?" End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Zhuge Liang borrows the east wind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Zhuge Liang borrows the east wind. Ge Zhong San Yan was hugged by this guy's thigh, which was really uncomfortable. She tried to kick him away, but this guy stuck to his thigh like candy and couldn't get rid of him. She had to compromise and say, "I am several decades older than you, not to mention being your grandfather, but being your uncle is definitely enough. But in terms of seniority, you are my younger brother. As an older brother, I can certainly help you pay a portion of your tuition fees, and only charge you 150,000 yuan. This price range was predetermined in his mind, and he estimated that his uncle, who had a deep understanding of the Tao, should have left some money for this kid, which is about 150,000 yuan. Zhongling immediately stopped crying and calculated in his heart that if he wanted to earn 150,000 yuan, how many people would he have to deceive to make enough by calculating the 8 characters. After he figured it out, he immediately burst into tears and said, "Brother, this is still too expensive for me. It's not something I can afford. For the sake of my master's face, can't it be free?" Ge Zhong San Yan couldn't help but feel angry and thought to herself, "You want to enter my high-end school again, and you want it to be free. How could there be such a good thing?" Iron-faced ruthlessly said, 100,000. This is the lowest price, don't cry poverty for me anymore. You know, you're going to attend a prestigious school in the capital. 100,000 to attend such a school is already a bargain for you. 100,000. Not even 100,000. Third brother, don't make things difficult for me, okay? Am I making things difficult for you? I'm already giving you face, okay? Go and inquire, whether it's the son of a wealthy businessman or a celebrity, who can enter my school for a price of 100,000 yuan. Didn't your master even keep 100,000 yuan for you? Zhongling was speechless when he thought about this and complained, "Third brother, you've thought too much. My master gave me 500 yuan. I've run out of travel expenses to the imperial capital. Ge Zhong San Yan is one head and too big. Nima zongi wanking, you can't do it. Do you really want me to accept your disciple for free? You have such a high level of Taoism, and have been in the mountains for so many years, leaving only 500 yuan for your disciple. You claim to outsiders that you picked up this child, maybe it's your illegitimate child. In the end, your son wants me to help you raise him." Finally, he stepped back and said, "I won't talk to you too much. 50,000 yuan is the lowest price. When you have enough money, come to school. Otherwise, you won't think about anything." After thinking for a moment, Zhongling agreed, "Okay. Can third brother buy a painting from me? Can you help me reduce my financial burden?" He really ran out of money, only then did he think of selling his paintings to his third brother. "What painting?" said Ge Zhong San Yan impatiently. "These are the antiques that my master usually treasures. You know, those paintings are quite valuable." Zhongling looked at Ge Zhong San Yan with an expectant expression. Upon hearing that it was his uncle's collection, Ge Zhong San Yan's face immediately turned green. "It's okay if you don't mention it, but whenever you mention it, he gets angry. When I was young, I bought a few paintings from Zhong Yuanqing and was tricked into vomiting blood. Even now, I still have psychological shadows. That old man, deceitful, doesn't even let go of his nephew, not a single painting is real. I remember a painting called Zhuge Liang Borrowing the East Wind, in which Zhuge Liang was not holding a feather fan, but a mobile phone. Zhong Yuanqing's explanation is that it was called to the wind god, otherwise how could it be borrowed from Dongfeng? Do you want to sell this kind of painting to yourself? Do you really treat my intelligence of Ge Zhong San Yan as a mental disability?" But at that time, he was reckless and blind at a young age, with a relatively low level of education. When he fooled him, he really became mentally disabled and spent a lot of money to buy this painting as an authentic work. Whenever I think about it, later I would go to the auction house with this painting in my hands, and everyone would laugh at him. The scene was filled with inexplicable grief, which was the pain of breathing when I was young. Go ahead and keep that old scammer's painting for yourself. Or you can sell it to someone else, one pit at a time. But don't sell it to me. Zhong San Yan was afraid when she heard his uncle's painting now. Zhongling didn't know why third brother was so resistant to master's paintings, but he wouldn't buy them if he didn't buy them. He found someone else to buy them himself. Can you arrange a place for me to stay? Third brother Zhong San Yan looked up and down at Zhongling again, and this guy was all dirty. He had just come out of the mountains and probably had bad habits. It was not suitable to live in his luxurious home, so he despised him and said, "Aren't you still going out to earn money? Go find a place to live outside yourself. When will you raise enough money and come back? It's currently the summer vacation period, and there's still more than a month before the start of next semester. It's best to raise enough money during this summer vacation so that you can just catch up with the start of next semester." Zhongling is very disappointed, he still has his third brother. Give back the nobles in the city. Are you relatives who come to your own territory without even arranging a place to live? Feeling cold in my heart, I didn't want to say anything more and left disappointed. Zhongling left the Yuanhe aristocratic university and suddenly had a headache because he had nowhere to go. Walking aimlessly on the street, feeling very desolate in my heart. Hey, what billionaire relatives? In the end, they also have to rely on themselves. I didn't know what to do for a moment, so I thought about buying a phone first. Anyway, that thing must also be bought. I have inquired before, a good phone costs several thousand, but a cheap one is less than 100. After searching for a long time, Zhongling finally found a mobile phone store and walked straight in. As soon as he entered the store, he shouted loudly, "Boss, I'll buy a phone." He was greeted by a female shop assistant who saw him dressed in extremely dusty clothes and thought he was a migrant worker. But we cannot underestimate migrant workers. Their salaries are very high now, and they can easily afford a few thousand yuan mobile phone. Starting to strongly recommend those more expensive phones to Zhongling. After listening to the various performance introductions from the female salesperson, Zhongling couldn't understand at all what screen size, resolution, memory, and megapixel camera they were talking about. Directly demanding, "I only buy phones for less than 100 yuan. Do you have any in your store?" The female salesperson's face immediately turned much darker upon hearing this. "Did you tell me earlier that you wanted to buy an elderly machine? Why did I introduce so much to you for nothing?" After getting the black and white square grid elderly phone, Zhongling was completely disappointed and excited. Nima Laozi also has a phone. The first mobile phone in my life. And it was bought with the money I earned myself. After buying a phone, Zhongling immediately wanted to call Su Jima and give her good news that he had a phone. "Hello, Sister Momo. I have already bought a phone, my number is XXXXXXXXXXXXX. On the phone, Su Jima's silver bell-like laughter came from. I know, I have a caller ID here. You don't need to give me your number, I have already saved it. Oh, that's good. Zhongling didn't know what caller ID was. I'll keep in touch from now on. I'm with my dad now, so let's hang up first. Good. On the other end of the phone, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes couldn't help but ask, "Who called you just now? Look how happy you are." Su Jima took her father's hand and coquettishly said, "Dad, a friend, why do you care so much?" Su Jima's father couldn't help but mutter to himself, "If a young woman doesn't stay, how can I ignore her? Besides, my father betrothed you to Prince Wang Yiming of the Wang Group. You can't just make boyfriends outside." Su Jima suddenly became unhappy and stopped talking. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. A big order of 200,000 renminbi. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 10. A big order of 200,000 renminbi in the following time. Zhongling set up a few hours of street stalls near the Yuanhe Noble College and fooled a few passers-by into telling their fortune, earning over 100 yuan. At dusk, Zhongling began to search for a place to live. Due to the fact that the aristocratic school where Sangu is located is within the Third Ring Road and is located in the center of an authentic international metropolis, with a wealthy and luxurious surrounding area, it is difficult to find small hotels. Ordinary hotels usually cost around 200 yuan per night, not to mention those luxury hotels. They can't afford to stay overnight. Zhongling couldn't bear to give up this money and ultimately had to choose to camp on the streets again. This is already his second night camping on the streets after coming to the imperial capital. In a free and open park, Zhongling endured until after 3 a.m., still unable to sleep. Coming to this big city alone, but ending up camping on the streets every day, it's heartbreaking to think about it. Lying on the grass, gazing at the stars in the sky, feeling the bustling metropolis that never sleeps at 3 in the middle of the night, I have thought a lot and felt very disappointed, not knowing where my future is. The next morning in the early morning, Zhongling got up and started his activities. Looking at the brilliant sunrise, I swept away the depression in my heart and instead became very energetic. He had a casual breakfast and started fighting for his short-term goals. Make 50,000 yuan before the start of school. It has to be said that this goal is very big and difficult. It was an astronomical number that he had never thought of before in his life. However, he is now full of enthusiasm and upward mobility. People need to have dreams, otherwise what's the difference between them and salted fish? Zhongling has a street stall on a large square outside a department store. The reason for choosing this place is, of course, because it has a high volume of people. In this way, Zhongling's life of earning money by telling fortune by looking at people's faces began in the big city. With his professional skills, he was very accurate in his calculations, so his business was better than that of an ordinary Mr. Ba, who could earn around 300 yuan a day. This income is not much for the consumption of the imperial capital, but for the child in the mountains of Zhongling, it is a huge sum of money. He never earns more than 300 in the mountains on a single day. Zhongling is very satisfied with his current income, and every day is full of enthusiasm. So, he passed through 5 days smoothly and has only been in the imperial capital for a week. On this day, Zhongling, as usual, set up a stall on the square outside this department store. However, today's business was not very good. There were people coming and going for a few hours in the morning, but there were very few people who came to see him for fortune-telling. They only earned a few dozen yuan after staying up all morning. Just as Zhongling was feeling a bit lost, an important target was discovered by Zhongling. I saw an old man in a hurry, with black energy rising from his head and his head lowered, his entire spirit appearing extremely listless. Looking at him like that, he has been haunted by little ghosts for at least half a year, has gone through countless misfortunes, and is on the verge of collapse. This is definitely a potential customer and there is a high possibility of achieving a big order. Zhongling couldn't let go and quickly shouted, "Uncle, wait a moment. I see that your black energy is soaring above your head, which is a clear sign of being entangled by a ghost demon. I also see that your eyes are turning black and your spirit is exhausted. You have been tormented by the ghost demon and your mind is exhausted. I can help you eliminate the ghost demon and get out of the sea of suffering." Uncle stopped his hurried steps when Zhongling said this, and looked at Zhongling in surprise. Seeing that Zhongling was a young man of 16 or 17 years old, dressed in extremely outdated and rustic attire, I couldn't help but feel a little distrust of him. "Ask, what do you do, little friend?" Zhongling quickly introduced himself and said, "I am a Taoist. Seeing uncle and little ghost entangled, I have a heart to help uncle." The uncle probed and asked, "I can't tell you're still a Taoist. But can you do it?" Zhongling confidently said, "Of course it's possible, but if not, it won't cost any money." As soon as the uncle heard that he couldn't help asking for money, he felt relieved and said honestly, "To tell the truth, I can see that there are many Taoists who are haunted by young people, but none can help me get rid of that evil spirit. All his mother cheats. Are you sure you have real talent? Are you not a cheater?" The reason why this uncle is so excited is because he invited 5 or 6 so-called famous masters to exorcise ghosts for him, and ended up spending nearly $1 million before and after. None of them were useful. Zhongling once again confidently emphasized, "Of course, there are real talents in the path. I can guarantee in advance that if I don't help Uncle drive away the little ghost, I won't take a penny from the path." Uncle thought to himself that if he died, he would become a living horse doctor. Anyway, he doesn't want money. Then he said sternly, "Let's make a deal first. If you can't help me get rid of that little ghost, I won't give you a penny." Zhongling nodded and said, "Okay. Since Uncle values himself so much, I also want to value him," so he said very stubbornly, "Let me explain it in advance, and remind Uncle that I have absolute confidence in helping Uncle deal with the little ghost that has been bothering him. However, Uncle also needs to be mentally prepared. My value is not low, and most people may not be able to afford this price." Uncle suddenly felt like a grass mud horse. The matter had not yet begun, and the price had already been raised, right? None of you Taoists and monks have a conscience. It's all about how much you can deceive. However, thinking of the heavy guarantee of getting rid of ghosts and giving money, he also probed and asked, "Little Taoist, can you tell Uncle how much money you need to get rid of this ghost?" Zhongling raised his head and chest, pointing out 3 fingers with an extremely imposing momentum. Uncle looked at the 3 fingers that stood straight, cursing in his heart. Heart said, "Damn it, it's so expensive. How could it cost 300,000? I can give you at most 200,000. Zhongling Nyobi coaxed and said, 300. The uncle was immediately surprised and thought he had heard the wrong thing. He was surprised and asked, "What? 300? What does that mean?" Zhongling suddenly felt a sense of emptiness in his heart. Nima usually only charges a maximum of 100 yuan to eliminate this kind of ghost. That was the same price as the last time he tricked Sujima, but this time the price directly increased to 300 yuan. This is really too dark, and he felt a bit guilty in his conscience. He quickly took the initiative to lower the price and said, 200. 200. I'm sorry, but generally speaking, I do charge 200 yuan. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have tricked you for the price. Uncle's eyes widened greatly, but he was also surprised. Is Nima really? You're not teasing me, are you? Is it really that cheap? But pretending to be calm, he said, "Okay, 200 is 200. Are you casting spells here, little Taoist? Or are you going somewhere?" Heart said that 200 yuan is so cheap, even if you lose 200 yuan, you don't feel sorry. Zhongling was overjoyed when he saw Uncle agree to a price of 200, and said, "Wow, ha ha ha. Are you foolish? I used to only accept 100. I tricked this foolish guy for 100, but I didn't know. It's so refreshing." Zhongling was excited in his heart and secretly proud that he seemed to be skilled in deceiving and deceiving others. But on the surface, it must not be revealed. He said seriously, "This little ghost is a bit special. He cannot cast spells outside, but must come to your home, Uncle." The uncle nodded and said, "Okay, then you come with me." Zhongling quickly took advantage of the situation and reminded, "Uncle, there's one more thing I haven't told you. When I come to the doorstep, I will charge a doorstep fee, which is 50. In terms of exorcism prices, I have already tricked others, so I can't cheat them on the doorstep fee. As a person, I need to have a conscience. I couldn't help but secretly admire myself. As a conscientious and scrupulous businessman, there are not many in this society anymore." End of this chapter.